Good morning and welcome to Paul T's world. It's England. It's midsummer. So that means two things. It's just rained and the blooms are out. And in this video, we'll have a look at both the front and the back gardens and see what's in bloom. And let's start with the white macrophylla hydrangea. As you can see, I haven't dug it up. And if you'll remember from some of the other videos, the problem is it needs so much water and it doesn't get that water in this place. I thought I would just have to move it somewhere else. But as you can see, it's bloomed like crazy. It's decided it doesn't want to be moved anywhere. I've got one or two varieties here. Now what's good about penstemons is they don't need a lot of water, which is just as well because they're in the rain shadow of this really large tree here. When I bought those plug plants a number of years ago, this is one of them. This little penstemon here. And if we just move along this border, I call the long border, we can go past the flowering currant, which flowers in the spring, and get to the second mophead hydrangea that I've got here in the front garden. Now, mophead hydrangeas tend to be pink in alkaline soil and blue in acidic soil. And this one does a little bit of both. And a little tree lily here. It's just collapsed in the rain. We've got some better ones in the back garden that are standing up beautifully. Now the long border doesn't have many flowering shrubs in summer, midsummer, as you can see. So we'll just move over now to the pathway. And here's the pathway. I'm really pleased with this. I envisaged a whole row of paniculata hydrangeas on the right hand side and then the macrophyllas on the left hand side, and I think it's really worked out well. So let's just have a little closer look at these, and I'm going to name each one. I might not remember the names right now, but I'll put them on a caption down below. But first of all, backing this bed is the controversa. I think it complements these paniculatas quite nicely. So as we remember, we've got the paniculatas as the main feature on the bed, and then we've got these azaleas, evergreen azaleas, bordering it. There we are, they go right up on the edge of the path there. They're all slightly different, these paniculatas. I was going to put the same variety right along here, but then I thought, no, I'll get a variety of them. I'll get them all different. These are the two biggest ones. They were advertised as the tallest ones, so I thought I'd put these right at the base of this path, where there's room for them to grow high. Oh, I do know what this is. This is this dwarf Cetus oak leaf hydrangea. Just starting now to look like an oak leaf hydrangea, the way it's sort of technically flopped, but the way it grows, it looks fine, and I haven't pruned that one at all. I do prune these back quite a long way, maybe a couple of feet I take off them, and I think this one's a pink diamond. What's nice about these paniculatas is the insects like them as well. This one's not out yet, of course. And I do know that these three at the top turn a lovely red later on in the year. Oh, just look at the stems, look at the colour of the stems there, isn't that lovely? Sort of reddish stems. And these just look slightly different, don't they? Just look at the flowers. And we end up with a little quickfire. I do remember the name of that one. Now this one goes very red. I think this goes the most red. So that is my row of paniculatas. I bought them all at the same time from a company that I'll link down below. Let's now move over to the macrophyllars. That's the lace cap and the mop heads on the left hand side of the pathway. I am so pleased with these two lace caps. These are the two cuttings that I took, oh, it must be 3 years ago now, I suppose, from a neighbour's garden and my sister's garden. Now, what do I normally say? Absolutely gorgeous, look at that. And next to them is the shocking pink lace cap. This has been here a while, and in fact this indeed was also a cutting from the one in the patio in the front. There's a bumblebee there just collecting pollen. Oh yes, and of course, just behind here, we've got another lace cap, and this is the Zorro. You know the Zorro because of the dark stems. And what's really interesting is in the back garden, I've got another Zorro hydrangea, and you'll see the difference in the colours of them. The other one in the back garden is electric blue. It looks great. I've cut back this Philadelphus that featured in the last video. I had been a little bit lax in cutting these shrubs back, and so this one I've cut back quite a long way. It's getting very straggly. I've got the Roseanne geranium. I've got these dotted around the garden, and in fact I've cut most of them right back now, so they will grow again and flower in a few weeks. This dahlia does really well each year. Really enjoy this dahlia. Leave them in the ground. And then we've got the fuchsia. You can cut these back as much as you like as well. They grow forward. We'll move on to the doorway, see what we've got here, and this is a little lime. It's certainly lime coloured. It will of course lighten up later in the year. It's in a large pot. Now the problem with this particular shrub here is it will flop later in the year. And I'm thinking of lifting it out and actually splitting it in the same way, dividing it as I did with that mop head a few years ago, and placing it in the ground. I've decided to put a couple more hydrangeas by the front door. And this one is, let me just have a little think. I think in America you call it pistachio and we call it glam rock. I just thought I'd put a little hosta there just to fill in a gap. Next to it, now this is son of white troublesome hydrangea. I took a cutting a few years ago. Here's another glam rock. The hydrangeas have been doing so well, so easily because of all this rain we've had in Great Britain, well, right the way through for months now. Let's walk through to the back garden now and have a look at that electric blue macrophylla lace cap. Here's another hydrangea. This is probably from a cutting. I don't actually know what this one is. Might be from my sister's place. I wanted to show you this one because I haven't shown you this one before. This is a macrophylla hydrangea Camilla. It came from Thompson and Morgan, and they did send this to me for free as a YouTuber, hoping that I would mention them. So Thompson and Morgan, there's your mention. Thank you very much. It came as a very small plant in a, is it a 7 or a 9 centimetre pot? But they grow so well. Yeah, so Camilla. Appropriate name now in Britain. Can just see through there on the patio that lace cap hydrangea in the distance, and that is the one where I took the cutting of that shocking pink hydrangea. And I am very pleased to say the agapanthus are flowering. So what have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 flowers to come out. Very pleased with that. That's in 2 pots, both totally pot bound, and maybe this coming spring I will split one of them. Maybe just one in case it stops it flowering for a few years. This border here, I call it the pond bed because it circles the pond. It was my tropical border last year and the year before. I've got a fabulous video where it had all the cannas and the dahlias, the palm trees, the banana plants, everything was out and it just looked fabulous. A number of things did die this last winter that I'm rather upset and surprised at, because we didn't have a particularly bad winter. This is zone 9A, which does mean we have frosts. Sometimes it can get down to as low as, say, -4 centigrade. But usually in the winter, it's hovering around 5 degrees centigrade. But yeah, a number of things did die last year, and so it's totally changed. And that's gardening for you. The beds change, and in some ways it's quite nice, but when you have something set up really nicely, it looks great for a couple of seasons. It might not stay that way over the following years, and that's just how we have to accept things. And this is what this border looks like now. I think it's okay, but it doesn't look as good as it did, so I'm going to have to do some things with it over this next year. Got some lobelia here that's going to look good in the next month. As you can see, I simply split it last year, and now I've got 2 lots, and I'm going to split both these clumps either in autumn or maybe in the spring. I like to do things in spring, but the one problem with doing things in spring is you forget what everything is. Oh, and look at this, a neighbour of mine gave me this. It is a Verbena rigida, and I've thought I'd pop it there because the other verbenas, the tall ones, are starting to self-seed. So I thought those would go nicely together. Just the colour of this is so vibrant. I don't know what you call them now, but I call them Montbretia, but I think the experts have changed its name. Just when you learn plants, the experts decide it's going to be called something else. Now this is Moonfire. probably my favourite dahlia. And what happened this year, because of all the slugs, it just did not get going. And I thought I'd lost it really. I thought it just wouldn't climb above the slugs, but it has. So it's not as good as last year, but it's still alive. The other Landolf style, is it Landaf style dahlia that was just over here, which is why there's some gaps, it didn't make it. It wasn't the cold, although these Landaf, Bishop of Landaf style dahlias are in fact less hardy than some of the others. Now, I did like this Persicaria Purple Fantasy, and I think it's lovely. However, I've pulled most of it out because it is just too invasive. But what I'm going to do is put some in a pot and put it on the patio because I really like it, but it's too invasive. I can just see a honeybee on the purple loosestrife. This is a native British plant. It likes boggy areas. It can be found along waterways in Britain. Oh, I can't resist it anymore. I'm going to move over to this Zorro. Do you remember the other one we saw a few minutes ago that was pink? Well, look at the colour of this. So obviously in the lawn bed right here, it's more acidic, isn't it? Oh, look at the colour of that. Oh my goodness, isn't that lovely? So I'm really liking this. Zorro Macrophylla lace cap hydrangea. Somebody just coming into land, I think. Some more verbena that are self-seeding. And I'll just squeeze back past here. I've actually forgotten the name of this, but I'll put it in the caption there. Put this in 2 years ago and it's doing really well. And in fact, when you're over here, looking past the purple loosestrife, I think that's rather nice. I like the red here. Let's get down to the red. There we are. I like the red of the Montbretia, the purple loosestrife, that plant that I've forgotten the name of that I'll get, and then the blue hydrangea in the background. Yeah, like that. Oh, and some phlox here. The phlox haven't done quite as well. I've got a feeling that many of these perennials you have to dig up and split, give them some good soil again and start them, because they always seem better, these perennials, the year following them being divided. I did give these the Chelsea chop at the front, so they are flowering later. And some of these at the back, as you can see here, they have already flowered. Oh, this Weigela has decided to flower again. I find when you prune back these Weigelas that they do give a second flush of flowers. The red campion now, I could do with going round and deadheading them. I'm doing it all the time. And I like the way, these are self-seeded, and I like the way the white ones intersperse with the red ones. Oh, here's a Pinky Winky. Hasn't quite got going yet. Macrophylla hydrangea. Here's another view of the blue hydrangea there. Lovely. Oh, now this one, let's see if I can... Oh, this is Dollar. Is it just called Dollar, this paniculata here? They're all much the same, really. but it's fun to have different varieties. Now let's have a look and see what's happening in the shed bed. These beds have changed a lot in the last year or so, with various plants dying, various plants coming to the fore, and because of my foot, I must mention my foot, because that's my main excuse for any weeds you see in the garden. The foot's okay, but it did take 2 months out of my my gardening year this year. So let's blame that. And we'll start with the paniculata hydrangea, and this is Phantom. Now the thing about Phantom is it's renowned for having really sturdy stems that hold up these large panicles. And indeed, they've probably got the largest panicles in my garden, and they do not flop. So I'm very pleased about that. I transferred a few phlox from the lawn bed to here. The agastache could do with deadheading them, really. There's bees still on them, but they're not looking at their brightest. But what is growing through them, or should I say leaning over them, is a plant my sister's given me. And again, I'm going to have to look it up. It's quite prolific in that my sister says she's forever pulling it out, but I think it might do in this bed here when it gets a nice large clump. Now let's have a look at the back of this bed. We've got that pink mophead hydrangea. This is the one that I split, literally divided it into 5, and then one part I planted here 2 or 3 years ago. It's doing well, it quite likes it here, it's not too sunny. Behind is the Griselinia hedge. Now I'm really pleased with this because it's actually now, let's just come down a little bit, it's actually now got to the height of the fence. So I'm going to prune it back to the height of that fence and see if I can thicken it up. But look at the tree lilies here. So they are about 7 feet tall now. I simply bought 9 bulbs from one of the, it was probably Thompson & Morgan, and planted them in 3s in different parts of the garden. And they've just done their thing, getting taller and taller every year. Quite easy, really. Adds a little bit of extra interest. So there we are. That is my front and back garden flowering in midsummer. It's 2/3 of the way through July, I think. It's about the 20th, 21st, 22nd of July of this wet and cold summer. Thank you for watching. Please give the video a like. It helps the algorithm. And I'll see you next time in Paul T's World. Bye.